which is 371D5, which says the tribunal will decide a case, and thereafter, if the government doesn't like it, it says that we can ignore it. So they can overrule the judgment of the tribunal. That was found to be violative of the basic structure, and Article 371D5 was declared as unconstitutional in the case of Samamurthy versus Union. There was another case which came about setting up of tribunals, administrative tribunals in Chandrakumar, where the judicial power of the High Court has been taken away, when that was declared to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. So basic structure is something which the court has been taking resort of to protect the judicial review and the right of the citizens to go to court and get justice. Something similar to what happened in our country when Indira Gandhi lost the election, she made laws, is happening in Israel now. For most of you who might be following the newspapers, you might be knowing that there's a turmoil in Israel. For some of you who might not know about it, I'll just tell you about the background. Israel has no written constitution. The parliament in Israel is called the Knesset. There are basic laws that are made in Israel, which is not the constitution, which govern the power that is given to the government to make laws. The Prime Minister now, Netanyahu, is on a slender majority. In the Knesset, he has a majority of 64:56. 56 are the opposition members. He stitched up a coalition and he is continuing. There are criminal cases that are pending against him of corruption, etc., in a magistrate's court in Jerusalem. So he came out with this idea sometime in March of 2023 that the power of the Supreme Court has to be somehow or other curtailed. So he thought that he will make an amendment to the basic laws, something like our constitution, whereby he would include a clause which is called an override clause, which means that the court will pass a judgment and the Knesset, which is a parliament, would sit and say, it's all right, we are overriding this. The judgment is of no use at all. And he also wanted to interfere with the appointment of judges. In Israel, there is a judicial appointment commission which consists of 9 people. Unlike in India, where judges, they have a collegium where they select judges, there is a judicial appointment commission. In that judicial appointment commission, 6 persons are either from the judges or from the fraternity of lawyers, which is the advocates. 3 are from the executive. So the majority is from the judiciary and the legal profession. So he wanted to reverse that. He wanted to have more people on the executive so that the selection of judges would be in the hands of the executive, and the executive can have its own persons as judges who would not rule anything against the government. It so happened in Israel that the awareness of people was carried out by certain democratic institutions, and there was an agitation. Before the conference took place the next day morning, in the evening, I was told by Professor Yaniv Rosnai, he is a person who did his research on basic structure and has written a book on basic structure. He said, Justice Rao, let us go and then visit and then see the demonstrations happening at the president's house. We just walked up, and there were about 30,000-40,000 people of all ages. They were just having some placards in their hand that there should be rights of the citizens which should be protected. And they were walking. Professor Yaniv asked me, you pick up anybody from this group who are demonstrating, ask them why they are demonstrating. Ask them what the problem is. Why are they on the streets now? All of them are very well-educated people. They have their own lives to lead. So I just picked up an elderly couple of about 60 years. I just stopped them and asked them, what's the problem? Why is this demonstration going on? They told me, 5 minutes, they explained to me, what is this override clause? How is it affecting the rights of citizens? If the power of judicial review of court is taken away, what would happen in a democracy? So it would become a dictatorship. Then I asked them, what do you do? One of them said that he's a carpenter. And his wife said that, I don't do anything, I'm a housewife. This is the level of awareness and consciousness of the people in Israel. After the conference was over, midnight I got a call saying that, Justice Rao, you have to leave early in the morning because tomorrow there is going to be a complete month of Israel. I reached the airport, all the flights were stopped. With great difficulty, by evening, I somehow or the other came out. But what made me think was this, which is a question which I want to pose to you. How many of you would think that such a thing would happen in this country? If at all, there is some law that is made now saying that there can be no case against Prime Minister Modi. Another law that is made saying that Supreme Court's powers are taken away or the High Court's powers are taken away. Anything that is done by Parliament or Executive would be supreme. Would we take to the streets? I don't see our reacting like this. All of us are very well educated. All of us know that we have rights to protect. All of us know the importance of the Constitution, but still we do not question because we haven't learned to question. I think this is something which we should imbibe in ourselves. Whenever there is an act which is oppressive, we should be the first to raise our hand, which we never do. So, the lesson that we learn from Israel is that all of us not only should react, but also create awareness among the people about the importance of the Constitution and importance of basics. I'll also tell you what happened after that. There were discussions. In Israel, the defense minister was against these amendments. In Israel, there is a problem between the Jews and the Arabs. There's always a problem with the Gaza Strip. It continues, and then there is some sort of a internal strife which is going on. The Attorney General of Israel, unlike our Attorney General here, is an independent person. The Attorney General of Israel said that this legislation is not correct. She didn't support the government. Like a government leader, can the government leader say government is wrong? She said no. What is being done is wrong. The defense minister said no. The president said no. President is a nominal president there. But still, the prime minister wanted to proceed. In spite of such demonstrations, he made law. The Knesset made law in June. The law, though has been scaled down, is to the effect now that though the Supreme Court has power of judicial review over parliamentary legislations, it cannot set aside any legislation on the ground that it is unreasonable. So, which means that you are clipping the wings. It says that your powers are restricted. The second one is relating to exactly what Prime Minister Indira Gandhi did there. Netanyahu has brought out a law by saying that the Knesset would decide as to whether a person should be the Prime Minister or not, in spite of some cases being there against him, because the Attorney General was saying that you should not be the Prime Minister because there is a criminal case against you. So he brought out that law also to ensure that he will not be sent out, trying to protect himself. These two laws were challenged in the High Court of Justice, as they say in Israel, which is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court there has 15 judges. And these 15 judges, in the normal course of business, they sit in a division of 3 judges each. But to hear these two cases, they sat all of them together, en blanc is what we say. 15 judges sat and then they heard arguments. September 12th, arguments were heard by the 15 judges in respect of this unreasonable clause. And last Thursday, that is the 28th of September, arguments were heard by a 11 judges bench headed by the Chief Justice in respect of the law that relates to protection of the Prime Minister. The questions that were put by the judges make interesting reading. So the judges were trying to ask the advocate who was appointed by the Prime Minister because the Attorney General was not supporting the government. There was a private lawyer defending the government. So the questions that they were asking the lawyer appearing for the government were exactly the same questions which were put to the Attorney General of India when Keshwananda Bharati was being heard, or Minerva Mills was being heard, or Vaman Rao was being heard, as to what would happen to the citizens. You do not want somebody or some organ to become so powerful where the balance would not be there. We do not have separation of powers in this country. Separation of powers is only spoken of in judgments. You have three wings, each of them trying to take over the other. There is the parliament wants to make laws and then say that court should not interfere. And court would be saying that this parliamentary legislation is not correct. Parliament doesn't like it. Executive decisions are interfered with by the court day in and out. Executive doesn't like it. Passes an order, court says stay. So they would say that how is it that we can run the government? I'll tell you an interesting incident without mentioning names. Before I became a judge, I was a law officer in both the governments, Congress and BJP. I was an additional solicitor general. So one law